Hey YouTube, Kevin Cleary with the knife video. I got a bit of a cold, so my voice might sound different. Bear with me. I do have some Kleenex that's just there off camera, so if I disappear for a second, I've just got to take care of business. Anyway, want to get this review out there because this is one I've kind of been, I should have done earlier. I've had this knife for some time. I've used it a lot. I've carried it a lot. And I do, overall, I definitely like this knife. It is, of course, the Spyderco Military. This is a much loved blade, okay? If you kind of look around on YouTube for other reviews, you'll find most people really, really like it. The design is specifically meant as a martial blade, a combat blade. By Selglesser's own description, it was the knife that, the design was, this is a knife that I would want my son to have if they were deployed overseas, okay? So that's kind of the thought process behind this blade, and I think it would function quite well in that role. We'll talk about some of the specific things, the grippiness of the G10, the blade shape, stuff like that, which I think contributes to that. While we're going along here, I will offer a couple comparisons to the Para 2, which is, I would suggest, more popular, and you can see the size comparison there. I will say I carry a Para 2 more. I like the Para 2 just a little better, although I don't know if that would be the case. You guys know I prefer large blades. If this would make a couple of minor changes, I think I would probably prefer this blade over the Para 2. Just as it stands now, I favor the Para 2 just slightly. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this. Size and weight on this, you've already seen the comparison to the Para 2. Size and weight on this is 9.5 inches overall. You got a 4-inch blade here and a 5.5-inch handle. And one of the things that's really, really impressive is that this weighs in at only 4.1 ounces. Okay, so if you're like me and you like a larger blade, but maybe you're not quite as willing to carry something really heavy, you know, maybe the ZTs don't do much for you because they're so heavy, this is a great option. 4.1 ounces is peanuts, especially for a blade that's 9.25 inches. You know, I don't really have anything that's 9.5 inches. I'm sorry. I don't have anything that that does that well for size versus weight. Okay, so I'll kind of explain as we go along why that is the case, how they get it so light. And some people have complained about it, but I really don't think it's an issue. You guys know what I'm talking about, the lack of full liners. I'll mention it when I get to the handle. Okay, so that's the size and weight on this blade, and I think the size and weight is a real win. The blade shape as well is extremely good. Let me zoom in here so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, come on, there we go. So there's that 4 inches of S30V. It is that modified clip point that we're familiar with in the Para 2. Well, we're zoomed in. Oh, of course. Let me just grab that Para 2 so you can see the blade side by side. You can see that the blade is considerably shorter on the Paramilitary 2. And even though that's the case, I still obviously like that Para 2. Now, so full flat grind. Over here you can see the Spyderco logo. It is made in Golden, Colorado. And very, very functional blade shape. It is of course very thin, and that's primarily for, you know, thrusting type of attacks. Remember, this is a martial blade, and look at how much belly. You know, in 4 inches, you've got like 3 inches of just belly. Okay, so it's got a lot of slicing capability there. This is certainly, you know, this design definitely goes with its intended purpose, which is to be a combat type of folder. Now, having said that, and that, you know, that explains the cutoff up here rather than the more traditional leaf-shaped blade that we get from Spyderco. But what I want to add to this is, although yes, this design came out of a desire to be a martial blade, a combat blade, it's of course a very functional EDC, and tons of people carry the Military as their EDC. You can, you know, go ahead and do the search. You'll find tons of YouTubers talking about the fact that this is one of their most carried knives. They really, really like it. And I've used it for all kinds of things. That full flat grind makes a knife really, really versatile. I'm a big fan of full flat grinds just because they kind of strike this really nice balance where they do everything pretty well. All right, so that gives you a close-up on the blade. I don't think there's much more to say, especially because it's been said so many times before, but very functional, very practical blade, and of course it is suited for its intended design. What about lockup and deployment though? This is one of those areas that this knife gets a little bit of a hard time. There are a couple of things. One is the blade tang is curved, okay? So let me put this down and demonstrate for a second. The bottom of the blade tang is curved and the liner lock comes in this way, okay? Is that good or bad? Well, there have been issues with a little bit of lock slip in that kind of design. Most companies have now gone to flat, so you have these two flat surfaces interfacing, and a little more friction can be created between the two surfaces. So the blade tang here is curved, and it's that curved surface that the lock leaf interfaces with, okay? I think that's important to know, although I will say, you know, you don't get a lot of people complaining about lockup on their military. It is fast, it is comfortable. By the way, this is, you know, if you're into flipping your knife and you're going to open and close it repeatedly, one, this is a big blade, so you may not want to do it in public, but it does deploy really well. It can, you know, all the typical Spyderco opening methods. You can flick it open, you can spider flick it open, you can do the spider drop, whatever you want to do, it all works. The thumb hole is oversized, so it works for gloves as well. So lockup and deployment is good, certainly acceptable. However, here's one of the sort of complaints that I have, and I'm going to bring the Para 2 back. I wish this had a compression lock. Many people have commented on this, and so I'm going to join my voice to the chorus. I wish they would do a Military 2 that had a compression lock and had the ability to carry tip up, okay? I know that would involve some kind of steel insert or something down here. Even if you just screwed into G10, I have knives that do that, and it's not the end of the world. Obviously, a steel insert would be superior. Now, so lockup and deployment are totally acceptable, with my minor complaint there that I do wish it was a compression lock, but it's not. It's a liner lock. And liner locks are fine, just not as cool as compression locks. And I would say not as strong. All right, now, that's lockup, that's deployment. Let's talk about this handle. This is another thing that this blade gets a lot of attention. You've got a big handle here. Look at if I take a sort of hammer grip on this, you've got about, you know, 3/4 of an inch of handle up here. You've got another 3/4 down here. You just got all kinds of real estate. It does have the choil here with very good jimping. That's one of the things that this knife shares in common with the Para Military is it's extremely functional jimping. You can really choke up and do some fine work, which is nice in a knife of this size. You know, there's definitely a need for that extra hand position in case you're doing something where you don't want to be back here kind of reaching for your work. Okay, now on the other hand, if you do need a lot of reach, look how far you can choke down on this knife and still have a good grip on it. I do have my pinky just barely catching the bottom of the handle here. Very solid grip, and you've got a lot of reach in that configuration. By the way, this handle is also designed very nicely for, you know, maneuvering the knife. It's comfortable in a lot of different grips, which I think is important if you're designing a martial blade. Okay, and I would say that's part of the purpose for it being as long as it is and having the shape that it has. It's to allow for multiple grip positions, and it does that really well. All right, lanyard hole is quite small, and you know, man, I guess you could get some 550 cord through there if you really worked at it. I'm not that confident that you could get the 550 cord through there without gutting it first, but you might do it. I don't know. Other point, of course, is the pocket clip. This pocket clip has been talked about an awful lot because, of course, it is only tip down carry, and many people have said, and I would agree with this completely, they prefer tip up carry. That's this way. Well, the problem with that is in this knife, there's no metal back here. It's just G10. So that means there's nothing much to screw into, and so the pocket clip can't go there. Again, do I wish that that was an option? Absolutely. Remember though that this knife is quite old. This was made before it was really a thing to have the 4-way repositionable clip that now we're all really used to. So again, do I wish they would make a change there? Absolutely, but it's fine as it stands. Now, I will say this, that I have carried this, and I have in terms of everyday use, I don't have a big issue with it being tip down carry. I've carried it, I've used it. There weren't really a lot of times where I was carrying it around going, man, I wish I could flip this the other way. It's just a preference. All right, let's see, anything else you need to know about this? I don't think so. You've got a very large, very functional blade. Let me back out here. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to say about how that lock is executed. I wanted to show you this to give you an idea in case you couldn't see it. This is my Kershaw Knockout. I brought that just for the purpose of demonstrating this lock. You see how the aluminum is cut out and there's a stainless steel insert. Okay, the Military is a similar idea in that this locking leaf is inserted into the G10. Okay, so similar idea. I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of things, but just so you kind of understand what's happening in case it wasn't that visible on camera, it's somewhat similar to a subframe lock where you have this metal ending somewhere down around here in the G10, okay? Excuse me. All right, so I think that's everything I want to tell you about this blade. It is a good blade. It's no wonder it's as loved as it is. For me, I do prefer the Para 2. I carry the Para 2 more. Not that I never carry this. I do from time to time. But for the reasons I stated, it just doesn't get in my pocket all the time. Still a great blade. I understand why those of you who love it, love it. I would probably love it just as much if there are a couple of minor changes. Certainly if you like this size, you're going to be hard-pressed to beat it for weight and for comfort of carry because it's also a fairly slim knife. There you go. That's my take on the Spyderco Military. Very good blade, very capable blade, and I don't think there are many knives out there that I would want to have in my pocket either if I was overseas. All right, we'll talk to you later, YouTube.